I'm now going to go around the room and ask everybody to introduce themselves. So I'll start this side.
Luke Catchpole, Technical Officer, Cambridge City Council Licensing Department.
Karen O'Connor, Team Manager for Commercial and Licensing with Cambridge City Council.
Fred Jones, Head of Cities for Uber in the UK and Ireland.
Morning, Councillors. I'm Philip Colvin, QC. I'm the barrister for the applicant.
Good morning, Helen Hayes, Legal Director for Uber.
Hi, I'm Claire Tonicliffe, Committee Manager.
Emily Watts, Committee Manager.
Rory McKenna, and I'm a solicitor with the council.
Astor Rannerton, I'm a barrister and legal advisor.
Thank you very much, everybody. I would now ask Mr. Catchpole to give us his report, please.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to consider the first renewal of the private hire operator's licence held by Uber Britannia Limited. An application to renew the licence was made by Uber Britannia Limited on the 7th of November 2017. A copy of the application form is attached to the report as Appendix A. The application is classed as a first renewal application, which is for any operator wishing to renew the licence at the expiry of the first year of holding the licence. An operator will need to demonstrate that they have been operating a private hire business for the full duration of the licence. The matter will then be referred to the licensing subcommittee, who will then review the matter to determine whether the applicant is a fit and proper person to hold an operator's licence. The applicant has requested an operator's licence to be granted for 5 years. It is recommended that members consider the information contained in this report, any representations made to them, and the legislative provisions and policy considerations detailed in paragraphs 4 and 5 below, and determine whether Uber Britannia Limited is fit and proper to continue to be a licensed private hire operator by Cambridge City Council. If members consider Uber Britannia to be fit and proper and decide to grant the renewal of the operator's licence, members can decide to grant it for a period of 1 year, 5 years, or for any other time period that is deemed appropriate. Uber Britannia first applied for a private hire operator's licence on the 26th of November 2015 and was issued with the licence on the 21st of December 2015 for a period of 1 year. Due to the operator not having traded under the initial licence for a whole year, the subsequent renewal application was treated as a new application. The licence was issued on the 21st of December 2016 for a period of 1 year. The current licence is attached to the report as Appendix B. An application to renew the current licence for 5 years was received from Uber Britannia Limited on the 7th of November 2017. In accordance with the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Handbook, this application is classed as a first renewal, as Uber have been operating under the current licence for only 1 full year. The current licence expires on the 20th of December 2017. When the first application was made, references were provided for Tom Elvidge and an enhanced DBS check was also provided. References have also been provided for Fred Jones since this report was written. Tom Elvidge and Fred Jones have both had their DBS checks carried out via the update service as part of this application. Both these DBS checks came back with no information. Uber do not carry out DBS checks or medicals before allowing drivers to drive for Uber. However, all drivers licensed by Cambridge City Council will have an enhanced DBS check carried out every 3 years, and procedures are in place for Cambridge City Council to deal with any information that is provided on the DBS check. All licensed drivers with Cambridge City Council will also have medicals carried out as per Cambridge City Council's policy. Any driving vehicle licensed by Cambridge City Council will go through the same application process as set out in the Cambridge City Council's Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Licensing Policy and Cambridge City Council's Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Taxi Handbook. As there are no set national guidelines around the licensing of drivers and vehicles, we are unable to comment on the steps that drivers licensed by other authorities have to take in order to become a licensed driver and to get their vehicle licensed, or the conditions that they must adhere to in respect of that licence. Uber Britannia Limited holds operator licences with 42 other local authorities. Tom Elvidge holds operator licences with 7 local authorities, and Fred Jones holds operator licences with 12 local authorities. Details of which can be found on pages 21 to 23 of Appendix A. Uber Britannia Limited has had 2 applications for an operator's licence refused by Reading Borough Council and Swansea City and County Council. The reasons are provided on page 24 of Appendix A. On 22nd of September 2017, Uber London Limited had an application to renew their operator licence in London refused by Transport for London. This decision is currently under appeal. The statement issued by TfL in regards to this decision is attached to the report's Appendix C. Since the writing of this report, on the 12th of December, the City of York Council refused to renew the operator's licence held by Uber Britannia Limited. The following reasons were given. The application by Uber Britannia Limited to renew its private hire operator's licence in York has been considered by the City of York Council's Gambling Licensing and Regulatory Committee tonight. Applying the legislation, the committee has decided to refuse the application, having concerns about a data breach currently under investigation and the number of complaints received. I believe we have a copy of this. Since November 2016, we have received 6 complaints regarding Uber as an operator. 5 of these were received on the 15th and 16th of November 2016, which was when Uber vehicles first appeared in Cambridge. The complaints related to how bookings were made and whether the triple lock process was being adhered to. Investigations carried out by the licensing enforcement officers concluded that Uber was acting correctly. The sixth complaint was received on the 17th of March 2017 and related to drivers licensed by the City of Wolverhampton Council, working for Uber within Cambridge. The complaint was looked into and it was concluded that as long as the triple check process was being followed, which it was, there was no action that could be taken. Further complaints have been received regarding vehicles licensed by other authorities working for Uber, not displaying licence plates or door signs. Each local authority sets different conditions and not all require door signs to be displayed. In regards to vehicles licensed by TfL, they must display a round or style logo in both the front and rear windscreens. These complaints have been forwarded on or have been sent to the local authority responsible for the licensing of the vehicle. Cambridge City Council can also take action against the driver of the vehicle if evidence is received that they are working as a private hire driver and not displaying their licence plates. No action has been taken against any driver in regards to these alleged offences by Cambridge City Council, but Uber Britannia Limited have been informed and suspended vehicles from the app until that vehicle is displaying the correct licence plates. One complaint has been received in regards to an Uber vehicle and driver licensed by Cambridge City Council not displaying door signs. Uber Britannia Limited were informed of this complaint and the vehicle was suspended from the app, meaning he was no longer able to access jobs through Uber until the door signs were in place. The vehicle in question started displaying the correct door signs and was able to take jobs through the Uber app. No complaints have been made to Cambridge City Council from members of the public in regards to journeys taken in Uber vehicles. However, since the time of writing this report, one complaint has been received, and after investigations it was established that the driver and vehicle was licensed by South Cambridgeshire and the information was passed on to them. At the time of inspection, Uber Britannia Limited used 4 private hire vehicles and drivers licensed by Cambridge City Council. On the last information we received from the applicant, I believe that this figure is currently 2, and they will be able to confirm whether that's still the number later. An inspection of the operator space was carried out on the 8th of November 2017 by Karen O'Connor, Team Manager for Commercial and Licensing, and myself, Luke Catchpole, Technical Officer. A copy of the inspection form is attached to the report as Appendix D. The relevant findings of the inspection were as follows. Question 6D on the application form indicated that bookings could be taken via the website. The inspection clarified that this was an error and bookings can only be made via the app. The booking process was explained in detail, page 4 of the inspection form, and the operator confirmed that Uber Britannia Limited invites the booking, accepts the booking, and that the contract is with Uber Britannia. A condition of the operating licence is that the operator must ensure that every vehicle working under their operating licence is covered by a valid certificate of insurance and a valid certificate of compliance, and a record of this must be maintained. At the inspection, Uber Britannia were able to show valid certificates of insurance for all vehicles working under their operator's licence, but did not hold copies of valid certificates of compliance for any of the 4 vehicles. Uber Britannia was not aware of the need to do this and stated that they will contact the vehicle owners and get this information from them and add it to their records. Any vehicle that does not provide this information will not appear on the app until it is provided. All certificates of compliance have been received and added to the operator's records. Uber have also provided assurances that they will continue to do this going forward. Should the insurance cover for any vehicle working under the operator's licence be cancelled, suspended or lapsed, then the vehicle must be immediately stood down, and Cambridge City Council notified of this immediately. Uber have processes in place to suspend any vehicle without valid insurance from its app, but were not aware of the need to inform the council. After the inspection, they are now aware of that need and will be informing the council when necessary. The list of staff provided in the application form was added to at the inspection, and a printout of ancillary staff was provided. This is attached to the report as Appendix E. Drivers receive a presentation that covers the use of the app and regulatory information that drivers must adhere to. A copy of the presentation is attached to the report as Appendix F. Uber also provides an electronic safeguarding e-module produced by Bernardo's that drivers can access if they so wish. A copy of this is attached to the report as Appendix G. Uber were able to provide all information relating to bookings and record keeping of journeys undertaken on the operator's licence issued by Cambridge City Council at the inspection. As part of the enforcement work carried out by the licensing team, a test purchase was made via the app. Officers found that the bookings were recorded in the correct manner. Uber has a complaints procedure in place. A record of complaints received over the last 12 months has been provided and is attached to the report as Appendix H. None of the complaints were forwarded on to Cambridge City Council, and this was discussed at the inspection. Going forward, Uber will forward all relevant complaints to the Council when received. Discussions will take place between the Council and Uber to confirm what relevant complaints are. A valid copy of public liability insurance was seen at the inspection. This expires on the 29th of June 2018. A first renewal application requires the operator to demonstrate that they had been operating for a whole year. Uber have provided copies of bookings for journeys taken under their Cambridge City Council operator licence for the first week of every month, beginning with December 2016. A copy of this can be provided if members wish to view it. The issues found at the inspection regarding certificates of compliance, insurance, and the forwarding of complaints that have been mentioned in 3.18 were discussed at the visit, and there has been further dialogue with the operator since. The commercial licensing team is working on developing a process on how all operators should report gaps in insurance and relevant complaints received to the Council. 2 letters objecting to the renewal of the operator's licence have been received from Pamper Taxis Limited and a joint response from Cambridge City Licensed Taxis and Cambridge Hackney Private Hire Association. The responses are attached to the report as Appendix J. This number has been added to since the report was drawn up, and members and the applicant have been forwarded all correspondence received since that date. Fred Jones of Uber sent in an email in response to the data breach that affected Uber. The email has been attached to the report as Appendix K. Section 55, Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976, require a local authority to be satisfied that an applicant for a private hire operator's licence is a fit and proper person to hold an operator's licence. A definition of what could constitute fit and proper is provided by Bingham LCJ in McCall v Rushcliffe Borough Council. Those licensed to drive private hire vehicles are suitable to do so, namely that they are safe drivers with good driving records and adequate experience, sober, mentally and physically fit, honest, and not persons who would take advantage of their employment to abuse or assault passengers. This definition relates to a driver of a taxi, not an operator, but the general views could be used when determining whether an operator is fit and proper. The authority has a duty to ensure that a safe and secure taxi service is available to the public. Every case should be dealt with on its own merits, and after consideration of any representation from the applicant and his referees, the following options are available to the subcommittee. Renew the operator's licence for the standard 1 year or 5 year period. Renew the operator's licence for a limited duration up to 5 years. Renew the operator's licence with additional conditions. A list of potential conditions is attached to the report as Appendix I. These are only proposals and members can decide to utilise all of them, some of them or none. It is also not an exhaustive list and members can add further conditions if so minded. Refuse renewal, and this carries a right of appeal to Magistrates Court. If members choose option 4, they must be satisfied that Uber Britannia Limited has behaved in a manner that renders them not a fit and proper person to continue to hold an operator's licence and give their reasons. Members are required to give their reasons for any decision reached. Uber Britannia Limited was first issued with a private hire operator's licence by Cambridge City Council on 21st of December 2015 and has utilised this operator's licence by providing relevant services since November 2016. The current licence expires on 20th December 2017 and the applicant has requested an operator's licence to be granted for 5 years. Having examined all the facts presented in this case, members are asked to determine the issue by choosing one of the options outlined in section 6. Members may give their decision at the hearing, and in any event, Uber Britannia Limited will be informed of the decision in writing as soon as possible. Any appeal must be lodged with the Magistrates Court within 21 days of receipt of the notification of this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luke. In your report, paragraph 3.9, Uber Britannia Limited holds operator's licences with 42 other local authorities. It's not unusual for private hire companies to be licensed with more than one authority, is it? I mean, or would you say that that's...
Working in Cambridge, I know that the main operators here are licensed with more than one Panford of St Cans and Cambridge City can have the same, etc.
And presumably the larger the working area, the more authorities you need to be registered with.
Yes, that's the case with the cross-border hiring issues and the deregulation in the 2015 Act. I believe that's the case now, yes.
Thank you. Okay. I've got nothing at the moment.
Chair, just at this stage, can I just raise this redacted information issue? You'll be aware that we've had a further submission from Uber, which they have redacted with regards to certain parts of it. And we have a further piece of paper here which talks about discussing that redacted item. The item contains information which the applicant recommends should be exempt from publication. The basis for that, I understand, is because it's about financial or business affairs, and remember, it's only parts of it which have been redacted. So the question first is whether or not you agree with that, and if so, that you agree the public interest is outweighed by the recommendation to exclude the public for this agenda item. If you agree with that, then if and when you wish to discuss those redacted elements, we would have to exclude members of the public. So can I ask perhaps first that you decide as a committee whether the public interest is outweighed by the recommendation to exclude the public for that agenda item, taken by a show of hands. And then we'll look at how you deal with it.
Having the benefit of having the non-redacted version and the redacted version in front of us, there are some items in here that I'm not sure why that should be redacted, so I'm not sure I can vote with the show of hands redacted. Without an explanation as to why that.
The same opinion.
There may well be some elements in here that are commercially sensitive. There are some elements that have been redacted that are not. That may be from a labour point of view, but there may be a perfectly good reason why we would feel it should be made.
I don't know whether you want to then, on that basis, having heard what you said, I don't know whether you want to ask Mr. Colvin just to confirm why it's said that this is information about financial business affairs or anything else.
Certainly, thank you. And this was the reason why we walked in a couple of minutes late, because I think just 2 or 3 minutes before you walked in, the question was posed to me, and I'm afraid I haven't been through the whole document line by line to deal with each redaction. But what I'm instructed is that the information is commercially confidential and sensitive, with specific reference to the data breach, which I was asked about just before I walked in. Uber feels that it's particularly sensitive that we do not put in the public domain information about its security systems in the same way that a bank wouldn't put into the public domain information about its security systems. Security is obviously of the utmost importance to Uber, and it's very, very wary about giving people who might wish to use information illegally any information or the means to use information to get data about customers. So those are the main reasons. If there are particular items in there that you feel merit further consideration and discussion, obviously we're prepared to have the discussion.
Councillor Winstead?
Yeah, thank you for that explanation, but to give you a chance to read documents and,
Yeah.
and the papers, on the redacted version, page 3 of 12, halfway down the paragraph that starts Uber's new CEO, Dara
Yes.
Karowski, that's been redacted. If you like a moment to read that? Because having read that particular paragraph that's been redacted out, I can't find anything in there that's either not in the public domain already or that would be breaching any security.
I understand your point.
Yeah.
Can you give me 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Yeah. So quite right. Looking at that, there's no reason for that to be redacted, and I'm very happy for it to be can be read out if that's helpful.
And that specifically deals with the data breach.
Yeah, it deals with data breach, and it's in fact what I think probably the public already knows through press reports of that incident. So I'm not going to suggest that that should be kept from the public. There's no reason at all why that can't be read out. There's apparently in the first line in that paragraph, do you mind if I just do it in this way? The ninth word is not in the public domain and remains confidential.
Yeah.
Just the ninth word.
Yeah. Continuing on,
Yeah.
page 412 of the redacted version, third paragraph down. I'm presuming that's again because of the same reason that the ninth word in the
Yes.
previous paragraph.
Exactly. Yeah.
As we're going through them, page 512, I would from your description,
Yeah.
before you read the documents, I would say that we could accept that would be commercially sensitive or security sensitive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I hope that's helpful.
So I don't know if we can deal with it this way, Chair, which is having had those two amendments made, is the committee now satisfied that firstly that which has been redacted is information about financial or business affairs, and then does the licensing committee agree that the public interest is outweighed by the recommendation to exclude the public when those redacted elements are discussed?
Yep.
Okay, so then in terms of how that's dealt with, I suppose we asked both the Uber and councillors, if you are going to ask questions about those redacted passages, we need to all be vigilant to flag up at that stage so that members of the public will have to be excluded. And I assume we'll deal with it as and when.
As we go along.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I will read out the now unredacted passage, so just read it into the record, as it were, so that it's all clear that the public have had access to that information.
Okay. Lovely. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So can you vote on that then? Yeah. Okay. Lovely. Thank you. Yeah, that's okay. Okay. Okay, so Mr Jones, you can now ask questions to Mr Catchpole or your barrister can.
Thank you, and we don't have any questions at all. Thank you very
don't?
much, Steve.
Okay.
And thank you to Mr Catchpole for his report.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So would the applicant like to put their case forward then, please?
Thank you very much indeed. And councillors, thank you very much for giving us an opportunity to address you in public. And as you know, I have with me Fred Jones. He is the General Manager and Head of Cities, UK and Ireland. And I have Helen Hayes with me, who's General Counsel, UK and Ireland. And I'm going to do most of the talking, but I'll bring Fred in at one or two points in my address, if that's acceptable to you. And of course, we're all ready to answer any questions which the committee may have us. And the issue before you is whether Uber Britannia Limited, I'll call them UBL, should be granted a renewal of its operating licence in Cambridge. And it's a local decision, obviously. And I'll be asking you to answer that question, yes. And I'm just going to start very briefly by summarising my submission so you know where I'm headed. The first point is that UBL does have a good operating history in Cambridge. Secondly, it has a good relationship with the council. Thirdly, it's popular among its customers. Fourthly, it has a good safety record. Fifthly, there are no customer complaints to the council. I think we heard this morning there's lately been one which was referred to as CDC. And sixthly, it has shown itself ready, willing and able to make changes when these are required by the council. And seventhly, in this case, proposed changes to the licence have been set out by your officers. I'm not sure whether they're proposals or suggestions, but they've been made. And they're at page 117 of your agenda papers, where at Appendix I, potential conditions are suggested to be added to any licence granted. And the first relates to the use of Grable technology. And Uber, of course, is very happy that it should have a legal condition, enforceable by the criminal law, not to use Grable for the purposes of avoiding regulatory or law enforcement activity in connection with the Cambridge City Council operator licence. And I can tell you very clearly it never has in the UK, so that's a very easy, never will, so that's a very easy condition to agree to. Secondly, UBL must report to the council any allegation or complaint relating to certain serious behaviours, and then those are listed. And then upon any allegation or complaint relating to those behaviours, my client has to effectively stop the driver getting access to the app and then report on to the council. My client is very happy to have a condition to that effect on the licence. And thirdly, when a booking is made under UBL's Cambridge City Council operating licence, then the customer has to be told that they're driving with a Cambridge City Council licensed driver. And my client is very happy to have that condition as well. So that's the seventh point. My client is responsive to those conditions and is happy to have them on the licence. And eighthly, and perhaps this is too obvious to require stating, there are two directors of UBL. They're Mr Jones and a gentleman called Mr Elvidge, I'll deal with in a second. They're people of impeccable character, and their job is ensuring that Uber is a compliant and cooperative licensee. Now, I'm not going to bore you with the law. In general, we agree with the policy approach, which is set out in your report, which Mr Catchpole has just read, at sections 5 and 6. You are concerned basically with the safety of Cambridge passengers in getting from A to B as a result of your licensing decision. And I also took a moment to read your policy, and at paragraph 44 of the policy, it stated that the objective of licensing operators is the safety of the public, who will be using operators' premises and vehicles and drivers arranged through them. And we wholly agree with that as effectively the purpose of this system. Now, you've received a very wide range of objections, mostly by trade objectors to Uber, including trade objectors with no connection to Cambridge at all. I mean the objectors no disrespect when I say that not all of the objections are relevant at all, let alone relevant to Cambridge, which is what you're concerned with, and some of them are historic and resolved. But I shall try to deal with each of them, albeit quite briefly. And if you want to speed me on or slow me up, I'm very much in your hands. This isn't just a monologue. You may well have questions along the way, and we'll take our steer from you. But can I make this clear right at the outset? You'll all have read material about Uber in the press. It's been not without controversy in recent months. And can I make it clear that as a global entity, Uber has not always got everything right in the past. And undoubtedly, Uber globally has made mistakes. And the arrival of its new global CEO, a gentleman named Mr. Dara Khorashahi, this autumn signalled a new boon for the company. He's committed Uber to pursue its business with humility and integrity, his words, and when there is a justified criticism, to deal with it promptly and cooperatively. And those are the watchwords underpinning the work Mr. Jones is doing for UBL, and they underpin this application today. There are problems identified. Uber wants to set itself to deal with those problems with each authority in each local area. So that's the summary. Can I then just deal with some key facts upon which we invite you to reach a decision? And those key facts are relatively brief. As you've just heard, Uber has operated here in Cambridge since November 2016 through an office which is staffed by 2 and sometimes 3 individuals. Now, as you can imagine, this is a big organisation. It is backed up by the Uber central operation in Aldgate in London, and that has a staff of approximately 150 people. Uber has just appointed a new independent chair to its board, obviously, whose duties will include matters such as corporate responsibility. That chair is a person named Laurel Powers-Freeling. She's a former board member of the Bank of England and of Marks and Spencer's, and she's a person of impeccable business and CSR background, and she happens, just as it happens, to live in Cambridge. Now, this is the 3rd time that Uber's licence has been up for consideration in this city. On the 2 previous occasions, as you know, the licences were granted. The individuals named on the form are Fred Jones, who you have here, and Tom Elvidge. As you know, Fred is the head of cities, and Tom is general manager at Uber in the UK and Ireland, and they are both directors of UBL. They have, of course, both been DBS checked, as of course have the Cambridge licensed drivers who drive using the Uber app. Those drivers' vehicles are also licensed by you, and they've gone through the inspections specified in your Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Handbook. As we've heard, there are a very thin number of complaints from members of the public in relation to journeys taken in Uber vehicles. I think the tally is 1, which turned out to be an SCDC vehicle. We've also heard from Mr. Catchpole that in the last year, 6 complaints to the council were made against Uber as an operator, but in all those cases, licensing enforcement officers held that Uber had been acting correctly. You've also heard that there was a licensing inspection, which was a very thorough and if I may say so, competent licensing inspection, and that did reveal the need for certain changes to be made in respect of record keeping and reporting and so forth, and Uber responded immediately and positively regarding all of them without any sort of cavil or quibble whatsoever. And so I'm going to ask Mr Jones, who actually has had engagement with the council over the last year, just to say a few words about how Uber has tried to engage locally with your officers.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. We've got a constructive and collaborative relationship with the licensing team here in Cambridge. For the duration of our operations, I've been the primary point of contact for the licensing team here in the city. So in addition to providing booking records and information about the licensed vehicles that use the app here in Cambridge, we've done so in a prompt manner. We've also worked with the licensing team on a number of other areas to improve our operations in the city. So I'm just going to touch on those very briefly. So the first was with regard to questions that have been asked about our operations, our operating model and business practices. So there have been a number of those over the course of the year. We provide full information and disclosure to the licensing team about those. And even I came and presented to the local trade at the taxi forward meeting to dispel some myths and be transparent about how we operate, how we handle complaints, operation, public safety, etc. We've also provided, in relation to some of those questions, detailed presentations to the licensing team on our systems and processes, and demonstrated those at our licensed premises as well, to be completely open on that. Also worked with the enforcement team to try and resolve the issues that they've surfaced to us over the course of the year. A notable one and a good example is around the train station. So there are concerns both initially around the pick-up point, being a bit too close to the Hackney rank, that was causing some issues and some friction. And then also latterly, where drivers using the app park or might wait for a booking. And so in response to feedback points raised by Mr Catchpole, we've configured the app specially at the station to alleviate those. So we've moved the pick-up point, we've given clear instructions to riders requesting an Uber where to go to get their ride safely, which is away from the Hackney carriage rank and the drop-off car park. And we've recently actually blacked out that specific car park and drop-off area, so no Uber vehicles waiting there can receive a booking. And so I understand whilst this is a recent change, it's had a positive impact on some of the issues there. And that's just one example of how we hope to always have a continued dialogue and respond to feedback to make sure that we really deliver a positive service to the city. Also, the third bit I just wanted to touch on is how we've responded to other kind of complaints, not just related to Cambridge licensed vehicles and drivers, but when issues have been surfaced to us about other vehicles using the app licensed by other authorities. And Mr Catchpole talked a little bit about those instances where we're happy both to let them know which is the licensing authority, put them in touch with the relevant individual in that licensing authority to raise their concerns, and also, where appropriate, restrict access to the app of that vehicle and driver until all the issues are resolved and investigations complete. So we're more than happy to cooperate, not just Cambridge licensed drivers and vehicles, but any others as well. I think that's kind of important to give them a safe service in the city. So again, just a kind of little flavour, but I'm happy to take further questions on that if that's happening.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Jones. So, Madam, in most cases, that would be what one would want to say in support of an application. But objections have been lodged, which raise a whole host of issues. Some of them, with respect, don't have to do with the question of whether UBL is fit to hold an operator's licence in Cambridge. What we have tried to do is to deal with the issues in a written note to save hearing time. And I am going to say a little word about each of them, unless you speed me on or ask me further questions about that. But before I get to the objections, can I just say a word or two about Uber itself as a brand and as a company? It's a young organisation. It was founded in the USA in 2009 and came to this country just before the Olympics in 2012, when the eyes of the world were on this country. Its London licence is held by Uber London Limited, and its licences outside London are held by my client, UBL, and or its directors. Now, you may well know all about Uber, but can I just tell you just one or two things about it? It operates through a sophisticated mobile phone app, which gives customers access to a network of drivers very quickly, and for fares which are generally cheaper than are available from other providers. Now, that's only achievable as a business model if a lot of customers join the app and therefore provide the demand for the service, and therefore drivers wish to sign up to the app to provide the supply side of the equation. That's the business model. But the benefit of the business model when it works is that there's a little downtime for the drivers. That's one of the attractions for drivers of driving using the Uber app. Time spent driving with Uber is generally spent earning money, not just sitting there idle. And it's therefore an organisation whose whole business model is dependent on it being very popular among the general population where it operates. And indeed the experience of Uber is that its model has been very popular. In the UK, over 5 million rides are taken in Uber vehicles every single month, and growing. In Cambridge, in 2017 alone, to date, 78,000 people have used the service, taking over 200,000 rides in this city. And the reasons for the popularity I can describe. It's not supposed to be an advert, but it's perhaps not difficult to understand. Drivers using Uber drive in modern, comfortable, low-emission vehicles. The pricing is attractive. Wait times are generally short. In Cambridge, the average is under 5 minutes wait time for the vehicle to come. But more than that, you can see how long it's going to take your vehicle to arrive. So you can actually see on the app, well, he's 3 minutes away, he's 4 minutes away, and so forth. And you can track it arriving on the app. You know the make, model and registration of your vehicle, and you can see the name and photograph of your driver, which of course makes you safer and feel safer when you step into a cab. So women leaving premises alone or getting from work back home, they know what they're stepping into very clearly. The ride is cashless, so there's no need to carry cash. The fare is then calculated through the app, and therefore it's transparent, there can't be any argument about it. And from a safety point of view, as soon as the ride starts, you can send a message to someone else, be it your spouse, your partner, or your parent, who can then track your journey on their phone in real time until you are safely home, so they can actually follow you on your ride. And then there's a complete record kept of the journey, the route taken, the time taken, and the fare charged in case of any issues. If there are issues, they are rapidly resolved by communication through the app. So in a place like Cambridge, it also works effectively in surrounding villages, where the public transport provision obviously is a little bit less than it is in the centre. Uber is very good at sensitively picking up concerns because customers are asked to rate their drivers. And this means that issues regarding the drivers are picked up very quickly. A profile of the driver rapidly builds, and if you rate your driver less than 5, the antennae just go up, and so issues are picked up rapidly by Uber. Now, Uber has grown very quickly in this country. Between Uber London Limited, the directors, and UBL, it now has licences in over 80 local authority areas. 28 licences have been either granted or renewed this year. Globally, you might just wish to know it operates in more than 75 countries across the world, and it's established itself as a popular brand. Customers of Uber will say, I'm going to take an Uber, much as the way some people in houses say, I'm going to hoover the rug. So the brand has actually become the noun. So when there are licence objections, these tend not to come from customers. And this is a very good example. They tend to come from Uber's trade rivals, whether Hackney Carriages or other minicab companies, as indeed they are here. Now, perish the thought that those objections might be anti-competitive in nature or born of envy. No doubt they're made completely in the public interest. But lest it be thought that Uber regards itself as beyond any criticism, this is also far from the case, and I'm going to deal with some of the criticisms in a moment or two. Let me try and just encapsulate, though, some of the regulatory questions which is